A homeless man shares his last meal with a stray dog. 6 months later, the dog does something that brings millions to tears and proves animals never forget who saved their life. An ordinary spring day. A man named John, barely surviving on the streets, finds himself with only one sandwich left. He could eat it himself and maybe survive another day. But then he sees something that changes everything. A sick, starving dog, trapped in a bog, struggling to break free. John stops. He looks at the sandwich in his hands, then at the desperate animal, and he makes a decision that will save both their lives. He shares his last meal with the wolf. From that moment on, they become inseparable. Two souls, abandoned by the world, surviving together on the frozen streets, side by side, day after day. But 6 months later, something incredible happens. The man collapses. A heart attack. He's dying on the cold pavement. And the dog? The dog does something that shocks the entire world. Years later, people would call him homeless. But long before that, in the Alaskan wilderness, he was something else. A man who once saved a wolf and was never forgotten. John was a prospector, searching for gold along Coho Creek in southeastern Alaska's Kupreanof Island. As he emerged from the forest, he suddenly froze. No more than 20 feet away stood a massive Alaskan timber wolf, caught in a trap. John knew this trap belonged to his friend George, who had died the previous week from a heart attack. If John hadn't been there that day, the wolf would have surely perished. He started approaching carefully. The wolf backed away, terrified, straining at the chain. That's when John noticed something crucial. The wolf was female, and her teats were full of milk. Somewhere on this island, there was a den full of hungry pups waiting for their mother. John stopped. He couldn't just free her and risk being attacked. But he couldn't leave her either. Her pups were probably starving. So he came up with a plan. He would find her cubs and bring them to her. John followed the tracks through the forest, up a rocky slope. Finally, at the base of an enormous spruce tree, he found the den. He called out, imitating the mother's high-pitched squeak. 4 tiny pups appeared. They were starving. They immediately started suckling at his fingers. John carefully placed them in his bag and returned to their mother. The moment she saw him, she let out a high-pitched whine. She knew he had her babies. John released the pups. Within moments, they were nursing. But the mother still wouldn't let him near the trap. Every time he approached, she growled. John knew he had to gain her trust. So he built a shelter nearby and spent the next 5 days bringing her food, playing with her pups, showing her he meant no harm. On the 5th evening, something magical happened. As John sat just 8 feet away, the wolf wagged her tail, slightly, but it was enough. The next morning, John woke to the sound of pups nursing. He carefully petted them, and to his amazement, the mother didn't move. She trusted him. John examined the trap. Only 2 toes were caught, swollen and cut, but she wouldn't lose the paw. He pressed the release catch. The wolf was free. John expected her to gather her pups and disappear, but she did something completely unexpected. She slowly approached him and began licking his hands. Then she turned toward the forest, looked back at John, and waited. She wanted him to follow. John gathered his belongings and followed her up Kupreanof Mountain to an alpine meadow. There, lurking in the shadows, was a wolf pack. 9 adults and 4 nearly full-grown pups. The mother and her babies approached the pack. After a few minutes of greeting, the entire family broke into howling. John watched from a distance, amazed. As dawn broke, John knew it was time to leave. He reached the far side of the meadow and looked back one last time. The mother wolf and her pups were sitting there, watching him. John waved goodbye. The mother wolf let out a mournful howl. 4 years passed. John served in World War II and returned to Coho Creek. As he walked through the familiar woods, something caught his eye. The rusted steel trap, the one he'd freed the wolf from. A strange feeling washed over him. Something told him to return to the meadow. John climbed the mountain and let out a long, low wolf call. A howl responded. He called again. Another howl. Then he saw a large, dark shape moving toward him across the meadow. It was a timber wolf, but not just any wolf. It was her, the one he had saved. The wolf stopped just in front of John, her bushy tail wagging slightly. Then, as quickly as she appeared, she disappeared into the woods again. John left the island shortly after. He never saw her again. But the memory of her and her pups stayed with him for the rest of his life. This story reminds us of something powerful. The bond between humans and animals transcends species. It transcends time. When you save a life, that life remembers forever. Animals don't forget kindness. They don't forget who gave them a second chance. And sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, they show us just how deep that gratitude runs. What would you do if you came across a wolf in need? Would you risk everything to save it? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you next time.